Alright, today we're going to be ending the Minecraft currency debate once and for all. If you don't know what the Minecraft currency debate is, it was a series of discourse on the internet that is still kind of continuing, and it was based on 4 major videos. And it talks about 3 different currencies with 2 unique types of currencies. But none of these videos actually hit on the one right answer. So let's get into the history of this and then explain what the actual solution is. Now, the first video was by Pinecone LP, in which he explains that he thinks that wheat is a better currency on Minecraft servers than diamonds are. Now, diamonds are something known as a commodity. Now, a commodity just means that it has extraneous uses. So it can be used for things and should be used for things outside of just being a currency. That's why it has value, and that's why it is worth it to be traded with other things. Diamonds can be used for armor and tools, which is pretty valuable. Next, it's farmable, and that means that you could set up infinitely large farms and get a lot of them at once, thus leading to rapid inflation and possibly collapsing the economy. The YouTuber KCJ tried to solve this with their video, in which they tried to say that Nether Star-backed securities are the optimal currency. Now, KCG in their video conjectures 5 main things about a Minecraft currency. First is that it should be farmable. The second is that it shouldn't be easy to farm. Third, that it should have a low intrinsic value, be only useful for 1 or 2 things and not be like an incredibly commonly needed thing, such as iron. Fourth, it should be stackable, like banknotes in real life. And fifth, and most importantly, it must be farmed by a human. Now, this is a very important point, because if you can build an AFK farm where you don't even have to be there, then you could run into the same issues as with diamonds, collapsing the economy, right? Should be farmable, but it should require significant amounts of effort, so no one can actually counterfeit it. And if they do go through the lengths of making it, then it should be worth the value they put in. Right? Now, these are just nether stars put into a shulker box. 1,728 nether stars in total. And these are represented with a signed book, which can only be duplicated a certain amount of times. I believe it's a total of, you do the math because you can make up to 8 books at once. 73 per one of these. Now, this is something known as a fiat currency, where the thing that you're actually trading with isn't actually valuable, but you can trade it in for something. Right? Now, fiat currency usually has low intrinsic value, like what KCJ posited, and it's also non-consumable. That means the actual thing doesn't get used up unless you trade it in, just like gold. It also has the possibility for something called fractional reserve banking. Right? So fractional reserve banking, or FRB, means that you actually have less of what your currency represents than there are of your currency. Think of, say, the United States Mint making, say, a $100 bill and say that that's worth a gram or an ounce of gold. It could make thousands of $100 bills and only have, say, 5 pounds of gold, because most people aren't actually going to trade in their bills for gold, right? Same thing here. You could have multiple books with the same amount of nether stars because no one will trade in their nether stars. They just know that it's backed by it. This causes a problem when a lot of people at once lose trust in the system and try to trade them in, and then you end up with something like a bank run. Now, Untossable Salad tried to solve this in their video by doing this, by saying that nether stars are completely infeasible. And that's because of very, very many reasons. Because nether stars, you can only farm 90 of them an hour, which will take, I think, either 20 or 200 hours to get an entire shulker box for, and that's for 1 unit of currency. So it's not particularly useful in terms of farming. Then it goes on a tangent of something like servers need players on it, and so players, to actually want to be on the server, need to be close to each other, and so you have something like a friendly border so people can still explore while also wanting to stay close to each other, and you can pay money to lower the border, which makes the currency actually valuable and not just be valuable because it's useful as a means of trading. Then there's also the concept of mods versus laws, because you need mods for the border things, but you could also have laws from the government preventing things like not using bone meal, not using farms. So you could use a different system of currency, which is what this guy actually proposes. And also it says, and also if you're doing laws, then you need a government, and then you need server protections, and so yeah, it's a lot. But the interesting thing about there not being a bone meal, not being a farm, is because this is what Untossable Salad's actual solution is. Wheat. You've circled back to the beginning. Literally, it's just wheat. But there would be laws about auto-farming it, and so you could actually have a government. But what if you don't want to do a government and just want to have fun playing Minecraft? Anyway, there's also a video by Ipshtoycat. I'm pronouncing it like that because I don't know how to pronounce it, and I don't care enough to look it up. Ipshtoycat pretty much just does a review of everything I've covered so far, and posits their own theorem for what would actually work. And they suggest Deep Slate Emerald Ore. Insert obligatory Camman 18 reference here. Now, Deep Slate Emerald Ore is rare, it is hard to farm, and it requires a player to make. And the only problem with it is it's really not that stackable. And it does even have some value as emerald, but it's definitely more valuable in its Deep Slate Emerald Ore form. So this isn't a perfect solution either. So what is the solution? Well, I think that KCJ actually got really close to getting it right. However, they refused to understand the concept of how much effort people are willing to put in to do this. So, my solution is the modified KCJ technique, which uses both diamonds and nether stars, right? Which is a dual-pronged approach, which sounds very, very... Anyway, it doesn't need mods or admins or any laws, really, to work. So how does it work? Let's look at this Venn diagram here, showing the strengths of diamonds and nether stars, looking at KCJ's 5 conjectures. First thing, both are farmable. Yes, it's possible to farm nether stars, but it's not that easy. And diamonds can't necessarily be farmed by like an auto farm like normal. However, there are things like tunnel bores that can get lots of diamonds per hour. Next, stackable. You can do shulker boxes, but for nether stars, you really don't need shulker boxes. It's so much work to get nether stars, you can literally just carry around individual ones or even individual stacks. Diamonds, you can craft into blocks, and carry a shulker box full of diamond blocks, which is a lot of diamonds. I'm not doing the math. And lastly, they are only farmable by the player. Both diamonds and nether stars need to either be mined, or traded for, or something like that, and it requires player involvement to work. Now, one of the strengths of nether stars is that they are very difficult to farm. It is not easy to build the farm, and it is not easy to run the farm. Right? Diamonds have something where they're a high intrinsic value, which means that if any time a player loses trust in the system, they already have something that is worth something in game, and they can use that to create things like armor and tools, so they don't feel like they've been cheated out of their stuff. Diamonds would work, in my system, as a common currency. Cash, cards, or checks. For anything that you need to buy, like just a cheap little stack of rockets or building blocks, use your diamonds, right? But for expensive things, like, say, plots of land, or, I don't know, elytra, you would use nether stars. Or, for example, if you wanted to start up a bank or use loans, you can use nether stars. Now, there would have to be an exchange rate for these, and I think you should base it based off of the farm rates. Diamonds can get, in their fastest farms, about 10 stacks per hour. Nether stars can get a little under 1.5 stacks, so the exchange rate should be something around there. However, this should not be forced. This should just be a starting rate that either of them, that the server doesn't even like issue out formally. It's just saying, this is a suggested trade-in rate if you want to know what works. Alright? However, do whatever you want. If the economy changes, like say somebody gets a ridiculous amount of diamonds, then make nether stars be more expensive. If someone makes a nether star farm, then you can make diamonds be more valuable. That's just supply and demand. So now finally, I ask the question, did I cook? Now let's look at the main problem with the other things. I'm wanting to play vanilla Minecraft with a couple of friends on a free server, and I just want a way that we can trade in easily. Mods we need? None. Admins we need? None. World border we need? None. Right? So yeah, subscribe.